Kept his mouth shut tonight. Romeo. You can go ahead and turn to Luke 12 if you want. Well, I had a birthday last month, and one of the people in this room thought that this would be a good idea. Hogopoly. Hey, they put Brad on the front. A little Razorback. Looks a lot like you know. I haven't opened it yet. I saved it for this moment. I'm not going to cut it. I'm not going to slice the box. Thank you, James and Emily. It's a very nice gift. Didn't mean to throw a knife at you. My bad. But I haven't opened it. So I wanted to use it for right now. See if I can do this Houdini act of opening up plastic in front of everybody. Y'all play Monopoly before? Y'all ever finished a game of Monopoly? Very different question. Okay, that's what I figured. As part of this game, I did open it up upside down. But as part of this game, there's some of this money here. Now, it's in different amounts. One of the amounts is this $20 bill that we'll use for this. I'll just set this here, and y'all can think about all the bad hog decisions you've made over your lifetime. It's a $20 bill. Now, that actually means a lot to me because it was a gift. A very kind gift, despite what the gift was. So I appreciate this little piece of paper. But if I tried to go to my personal favorite place on earth, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, and use this $20 bill, I'm going to get a very weird look, right? Because even though it's worth something in some context, and in Monopoly, this is priceless. If we play Monopoly, I take that seriously. I will take you down. But in certain contexts, it's worth something. But in real life, we might say, it's really not. Now this is old Andrew Jackson, a real $20 bill, real life $20 bill. If I walked with this to Tropical Smoothie, I could, use it to get amazing smoothies. They both say they're worth $20. This one says $20, this one says $20. But only one of them is useful in what we might call the real world. Now, what we talked about last week was the parable of the wealthy farmer. The one who works so hard, he earns his money, and then he saves it up. And he says, I'm going to eat, drink, be merry. I'm going to live my life. I'm going to retire, live off of what I've earned. In other words, I'm going to live the American dream, right? We talked about him last week. And in verse 21 here in Luke 12, the conclusion to this parable, after the rich man has died because of what he did, Jesus says, so is the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. Now, tonight what we're going to do is walk through the verses that follow this, walk through the application that Jesus makes from his own story. But I want to start with this because this really is an illustration where this is valuable in one sense, in a certain very particular context. But in reality, this is much more valuable, right? But what we learn from this parable is that this piece of paper really is just a piece of paper. Just because it says $20 on it and it's valuable in a particular context, doesn't mean it's actually worth much at all. Because this doesn't really change anything about how rich I am toward God. I can have as many of these as I want and be absolutely broke when it comes to being rich toward God. Now, I can use this to become more rich toward God, which is what makes it potentially valuable. And that's what we'll talk about tonight. Start reading with me in verse 22. Jesus is talking to his disciples. He says, once again, we're in Luke 12. He says, "Therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat, nor about your body, what you will put on. For life is more than food, and the body more than clothing. Consider the ravens. They neither sow nor reap. They have neither storehouse nor barn, and yet God feeds them. Of how much more value are you than the birds? And which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to his span of life?" And then he has this question. "If then you are not able to do as small a thing as that, why are you anxious about the rest?" Why are you worrying? Now, remember that Jesus is talking to his disciples here. He's talking to people who had literally left everything to follow him. I can only imagine what he'd say to us. Because we're not worried about living, right? We're not worried about making it to tomorrow. We're not worried about living. We're worried about a standard of living. And we're not worried about food, whether or not we're going to have it. We're worried about what type of food we just feel like in the moment. And same with clothes. I didn't have to worry about coming in here tonight wearing stuff with holes in it or stuff that wasn't appropriate for the moment or something that is too heavy for the summertime. I didn't have to worry about any of that. Something that's nice, appropriate, clean, right? When you hear someone say, I assume none of us would say this, but when you hear someone else say, I just don't have anything to wear, they don't really mean that they don't have anything to wear, right? We mean that we don't really particularly want to wear any of the many clothes that we do have. And in reality, we probably could go buy some more new ones if we wanted to. So none of us are worried about any of those things. We're not worried about starving to death. We have soup kitchens. We have shelters. We're going to be fine no matter what. But that comfort, that safety, that security, I think actually makes it harder for us to live out what Jesus is talking about here. Because if we were to boil down this section that we just read into one little phrase, it's pretty simple. And it's the exact opposite of how we might live our lives. Because in our context, when we can take care of ourselves, at least we feel like that, we can begin to trust in me rather than in him. And that's the exact opposite of the point of this. Because the point really is just learn to rest in the sovereignty of God. Learn to rest in the sovereignty of God. Learn to say, hey, it's going to be okay. God, you're in control. So make me poor. Or give me even more money than I already have. Whatever you want, I'm fine with it. Because you're in control. And whatever I have, I just want to use it to make you look bigger, to glorify you. That's all I want. It's learning to rest in his control. And I've got to be honest, lately in life there's been some stuff that's going on and it's weighing me down. I've been worrying about stuff. But one of the things that's really woken me up is just putting it into the words, just pretty simple words. But worry is a sin. It's not an option for me as a disciple. And there are some nuances here. Paul was concerned for the churches. But in general, here, don't be anxious. Matthew 6, don't be anxious. Philippians 4:6, don't be anxious about literally anything. That's a really big statement. And there are medical conditions that anxiety that can bring on, like with chemical imbalances, can bring on attacks and all that. We're not talking about that. Just talking about what we all experience every day. Normal worry. God says, you can get rid of that, and you really need to. And it's easy to forget sometimes that God's commands are for our good. It's not like God is up there and he's looking down at us and he's like, man, I'm going to make their lives absolutely miserable. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tell them not to worry. And then we go to God and we're like, are you serious? I love worrying. That is my favorite thing to do in the world. Are you kidding? Why would you take that away? Well, no, nobody wants to do it, right? God's commands are for our good. So God's saying, no, you can get rid of that. And it's good for you. I want you to do it because it'll make you into more of the person that you need to be. Keep reading with me. Jesus says, consider the lilies, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin, yet I tell you, even Solomon, in all his glory, was not arrayed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass, which is alive in the field today, and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, how much more will he clothe you, O you of little faith? And do not seek what you are to eat and what you are to drink, nor be worried, for all the nations of the world seek after these things. And your Father knows, this last phrase is the key, your Father knows that you need them. His disciples were struggling with living like everybody else. I mean, if God doesn't exist and if he doesn't do anything in the world today, why would I not live for myself? Why would I not try to get as much as I can and keep it for as long as I can and look as good as I can for as long as I can? Because I'm number one. I've got to take care of me. What else is there to do? It's about me. But us in this room, we're supposed to be different. Because we know that there's someone up there who's in control. We know that it's not all about us. So instead of living like that, look at verse 31. We have to live like this. Instead, seek his kingdom. And these things, everything that everybody worries about, they'll be added to you. In other words, put at the center of your life what is eternal, what really matters, what really counts in the long run. Not the monopoly money, the real thing. Put it at the center of your life, treasures in heaven, rich toward God. And everything else is going to sort itself out. In verse 32, Jesus says, don't be afraid. Fear not, little flock. I love that name. It's just a cute way to describe it. It's just this little flock in this massive world. That's how we are to Jesus. Little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. There are three images here of what God is for us. Three pictures of what he is for us. The first is that we are his little flock, Jesus says, so God is our shepherd. Now, it's okay to talk, so finish the sentence with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. I'm not going to lack anything, right? So when God is my shepherd, I'm going to be fine. Because a shepherd knows what his sheep needs. And he takes care of it. That's the first image. The second image, he says that God is our Father. Now a father, at least a good father, takes care of his children. He nourishes his children. He protects his children. He provides for his children. That's what God is for us. And the third image, God is king. Because this last phrase, it's your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Now, no little peasant gives away the kingdom. Only the king disposes of the kingdom. So if God's giving it to us, we know what that means about him. It means that as king, he has the power, the authority to do what he wants. So here we have these three images piled on top of each other, and they're all messages from Jesus, all pictures to help us get that we shouldn't be afraid about giving our stuff away. We don't have to be scared of it. Because God is our shepherd, he's our Father, and he's our king. And as our shepherd, he knows what we need. And as our Father, he wants to give it to us. And as our king, he can. So don't be afraid, he says. Fear not to walk this scary seeming path. There are some people in here who are around college age. I guess I'm one of them. And most of you have been there at one point. So if you're there right now, or if you have been in the past, I want you to imagine that you're 17, 18. You're trying to figure out what you're doing with your life. It's a scary time in life, right? And you don't really know what you're going to do. But one day you get a call. It's from an unknown number. And I don't know why, but you answer this unknown number because we all know what an unknown number means right now, right? You're getting a spam call. But this, for some reason, you pick this up because you make a bad decision. And turns out it's the best decision that you've ever made. Because you pick it up, and it's this uncle that you never even knew existed. Let's call him Uncle Billy. So Uncle Billy, pick up the phone, and Uncle Billy says, hey, niece, my nephew, you're talking to him, and turns out he's this totally loaded, rich uncle that you never even knew existed. And he says, hey, my niece, my nephew, what I want from you, I want you to graduate college. I want you to get a 4-year degree. And if you do that, if you show me the diploma, I'm going to give you $1 billion. Pretty sweet, right? So you look everything up, want to make sure that old Uncle Billy is legit. You look up his business, it's real, he's on the website. You get him to will out the money to you. It's all real. Now, like I said, it's okay to talk. So somebody tell me, if you're in that situation, you get this call, and all you have to do is graduate college to get $1 billion. Tell me what you're going to be doing for the next 4 years of your life. That's not a trick question. Going to college, right? You're going to get that degree. If you're like me, I'm not going to talk to another person for 4 years. I'm going to be in my dorm room studying for 4 straight years because I know what's waiting at the end. And in those 4 years, sure, you might go through some tough times. You might have to eat some top ramen during those years. Not even you know ramen, the orange noodle packets. So there's ramen. You think that's the lowest rung on the ladder. Top ramen. It's actually below, it's the knockoff of ramen. So you might have to eat that for a little while. They basically pay you to eat top ramen, okay? So you might have to eat that for your 4 years. You might have to do it every meal for 4 years. But you're probably, you might not enjoy that, but you're probably not that worried, right? Because you know that if you get through that, you're set. You never have to worry, work again. And that's the picture that God gives us here. He wants to give us the kingdom. So he's saying, look, yeah, sure, you might go through some stuff here on earth. You might have to eat the metaphorical top ramen or literal top ramen for a while. But if you make it through that, you have this inheritance that we can't even begin to measure what it's worth. We can't even begin to appreciate what all it's going to mean to us, what it's going to change about us. So, don't be afraid. It's Jesus' point here. Let's be lavish and generous and cheerful givers. Let's make God our treasure above all other treasures, all these earthly, all this monopoly money that we have here on earth. Let's treasure Him above all of that. And let's display that we do treasure Him higher than everything else by giving and giving and giving and giving to people who need it. That's Jesus' application of what He says here in verse 33. Because of God's ridiculous generosity, because you have this inheritance, verse 33, sell your possessions and give to the needy. You guys want to skip that verse? I vote yes. Verse 30, no. Really, because what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with verse 33? Sell your possessions and give to the needy. How are you going to apply that verse? What do you think it means? Do you think it means sell your possessions and give to the needy? So what are we going to do? Have you ever sold a possession to give to a poor person? Have you ever looked at a poor person and your heart just bled for them? Maybe you meet somehow a little orphan girl from another country who just has absolutely nothing. You know she's hungry. You know she's thirsty. And you say, look, I like my car. I like my second car. I like my third car. But I love her more. Or maybe I'll sell my house and then I can feed her for life. Maybe I'll sell one of these other things that I really want. Just because we don't know them and don't see them on a daily basis, doesn't mean there aren't thousands, millions, billions of people just like that in the world who really are worried about living and eating and whether or not they have clothes. We're not worried about any of that stuff. But can we say that we love them more than we love ourselves? If we really do just live for ourselves every day. When we talk about letting go of stuff, it's almost never stuff that we actually we feel like we need. Most of the time it's stuff that we don't even really want. And none of us would say that we love our stuff more than we love people. Of course we wouldn't say that. But what do our lives say? I don't think Jesus here is talking about that pair of shoes that you've had for a few years, and they're kind of getting worn out. You want to get some new ones, so you donate the old ones to Goodwill. It's your good deed for the year, right? I'm such a saint. I donated my old shoes. I don't think that's what he's talking about. I don't think he's talking about that car that's just been an eyesore in your yard for forever and it doesn't even run anymore, so you get it towed away for a tax deduction. I don't think he's talking about that either. It's not the leftovers. Sell your possessions and give to the poor. Now, there's definitely some nuance here, right? There's some discretion here. I mean, these people that he's talking to, their country was under the rule of another country. They were incredibly poor. Now, that doesn't make it better for us, does it? I mean, well, these people, they had given up everything to follow Jesus. They had left their families at home. They left their jobs. They'd given up everything. That doesn't really make it better either, does it? I mean, these people were surrounded by people who needed help. They were surrounded by poor people. Well, me too. And even if we don't go to that side of town, they're there. And there really is some nuance. That was sarcastic, but there really is nuance. I'm not telling you to go sell all your stuff right now and go give it to everybody. Maybe that is what you need to do. That's what he told the rich young ruler, right? Go sell everything that you have and follow me. Maybe that's what you need to do to follow Jesus. You do need to sell everything that you have, but it's definitely not required of everybody at all. So there really is some nuance here. But what I worry about is that we in our culture have come to value, appreciate, love that monopoly money so much that it's become everything we want. You know, one of the last times I played Monopoly, I played it with my family back home, with my brother-in-law. He was involved in the game. It wasn't one-on-one, but it became one-on-one. Because my brother-in-law and I are both too competitive, right? It's not good, but we're competitive. And so we're getting into this Monopoly game. And we almost, I mean, I'm not a fighter, I'm not going to fight him. But I thought about it for a second because he was scheming. He was using his relationship with my sister, his wife, to turn her against me, and she was making moves that would help it. It was awful. Okay, you know the type of guy. He's the worst kind of guy. So I love my brother-in-law. But anyway, no, but I mean, I actually felt genuine bad feelings toward him during that game because I let that Monopoly money mean too much to me. I let it distort my view of reality. And I think in our culture, our culture that is so materialistic that sometimes we can't even see straight, we let that distort our view of everything else, the deceitfulness of those riches, where we come to value this as though it were this. We come to value the worldly riches above all those heavenly riches, and we miss what really matters in life. We've been staying in Luke 12 for this week and last week, but look at Luke 14 really quick. We're going to go over a couple chapters. Luke 14, and verse 33. It's a powerful verse. Jesus says, "Any one of you who does not renounce all that he has cannot be my disciple." I reinterpreted that to mean every one of you who is not willing to renounce all that he has can't be my disciple. But that's not what he says, is it? Every one of you who does not renounce all that he has, he can't follow me. I think what we learn from the scriptures is that God blesses us. And if you're in this room, you're blessed. If you're in this room, you are necessarily one of the 15% richest people in the history of the world. Just by being in America. Top 15% of everybody who's ever lived. You're rich. So God's blessed all of us in that way. But he blesses us, he prospers us, not to raise our standard of living, but to raise our standard of giving. Because my life isn't supposed to be about me. It's supposed to be about everybody else. I want to do something a little bit different right now. I want to give us all a few minutes because I need these few minutes. I want to give you an opportunity to pray silently. We're not moving around or anything, just in your pew. And renounce your stuff to Jesus. For me, I'm going to start with my car. So I'm not going to say anything. I don't know how long until it feels awkward maybe. Just give you some time to pray and renounce your car to Jesus. If you have a car, just pray to God and tell him that it's his. What about your house? Let's renounce that. What about something that you really love? Something you don't want to get rid of? Let's renounce that. Let's renounce everything. Think of specifics. Stuff you have in your house. Stuff you love. Just pray to God. Now, those prayers, if you're really doing it, that's scary. At least for me it is, and maybe for you. I think that's because we all slip into finding our security, our comfort, and our safety in our stuff instead of in God. And renouncing all that I have doesn't mean that, like I've said, trying to be balanced here, it doesn't mean that I give it all away right now. But it does mean that if someone needs my car for a week, for a month, whatever, you got it. If someone needs a shower in my house, come take a shower. I will be far away. If you need a bed, got mine. That's what it means. Because the stuff that we have, it's not ours. It's not to raise our standard of living. It's to raise our standard of giving. The stuff that I have is yours because it's his. It's all his stuff. Look at verse 34. Provide yourselves with money bags that do not grow old, with a treasure in the heavens that does not fail, where no thief approaches and no moth destroys. That's really where we get this imagery from. Where we have this, we have the money bags that do grow old, treasure that does fail, treasure that is able to be stolen and destroyed. Then we have this, and this is obviously, this is standing for this, so this might be confusing. But let's say that this is our heavenly treasure. It's a money bag that cannot grow old. It's a money bag that will never fail, treasure that can never be stolen or destroyed. The point here is that verse 34 is how I do verse 33. Or verse 33 is how I do verse 34. When I sell my possessions and give it to poor people, I'm laying up treasures in heaven. That's how this works. When I sacrifice here on earth, I gain there in heaven. In that moment, when I hand this off to someone, something happens in heaven, a little cha-ching, and there's a little spiritual coin that drops into my heavenly bank account. And I can't see it. This is all a faith thing. I just have to trust that it's there. But it is. And no one can steal that. Nobody can touch that. And Mark 10 and verse 30 says that whatever we give here on earth, God will multiply that times 100, give it back to us. And Luke 6 verse 38, Dennis read it this morning, and I didn't have it in my sermon. I had to add it. Turn there with me real quick, just a few chapters back. Luke 6:38, just such an awesome verse. Jesus says, Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, will be poured into your lap. You know, when you this is not just me, so don't look at me like it is. When you don't want to take the trash out, so you push it down, so you can put more in there before you have to take it out, right? That's the image here. He's pushing it down so he can get more. Then he's going to pour it into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Whatever we give here on earth, Mark 10:30, 100 times, here, pressed down, shaken, it's coming right back to us. Maybe not here on earth, but maybe not here on earth, but definitely up there. Now, do you believe that? Do I believe that? Because if I do, it's going to change how I deal with my stuff dramatically. Now, to me, the end of this text is a surprise. Because really, this whole text is about how life is not about racking up treasures, right? But then we get to the end of the text and we find out that life actually is about racking up treasures. Except it's not the treasures that the rich farmer was after. It wasn't the stuff down here. It's the stuff up there. It's where the real treasures are. Because the stuff that we get down here on earth is not for accumulating. It's not about keeping more and more for me. It's about distributing. And when I do that, when I give radically, what Jesus teaches is that I am blessed disproportionately. Mark 10, verse 30, 100 times. Luke 6:38, pressed down, shaken, and poured into your lap. Maybe here, definitely there. You know, this section is about this stuff. It's about money. That's why we've been talking about it. But really, it's not about money. I mean, it is, but there's something deeper behind it that really is the point of all of this. It's about what's right here, your heart, my heart. Because look at verse 35, the end of verse 34. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. That's behind all of this. That's why this matters. Because wherever I put my money, that's where my heart goes. This stuff is not inherently good, and it's not inherently bad. It's just paper. But it is inherently valuable. Because this stuff, for whatever reason, this stuff moves my heart. Wherever I put this stuff, my heart will follow. You know, I'm 22 whole years old. I'm so old, so mature. And in those 22 years, you know what I've never done once in my life? I've never Googled the stock market. I've never looked in I was going to say I've never looked at a newspaper at all, but I have done that. But I've never looked at a newspaper to see what the stocks are doing right now. Never. Anybody, you can talk. Anybody have a guess as to why that is the case? Too young. Good guess, Troy. No, I heard some whispers. Somebody got it, I think. Yeah, Brad got it. He's close. I can hear him. You. Why'd you have to get it? I don't have any stock. Now, don't judge me because I'm not good with money. Don't judge me on that. The point is, I don't care about the stock market because I don't have any of this in there. My heart's not in the stock market because wherever this is, my heart follows. So if I'm giving all this stuff away, I'm giving it all to people, and what happens in that moment? Cha-ching, there's a coin in my heavenly bank account. If I'm giving it all away and all my stuff is now up there, what am I thinking about on a daily basis? I'm not focused on what's going on down here in a bad way. All I can think about is up there. I mean, when is the last time that you longed for heaven? Not because you were depressed in that moment, but you just really wanted to be there. Because all the stuff that you care about is there. You know, I think maybe the only thing more foolish than this farmer's pursuit in Luke chapter 12, how he just all of his life, he lived a solid life. He was a good guy. But his life was about all this stuff down here. It was about the monopoly money of this world. That was foolish, what he did. That's why God called him a fool. But I think the only thing more foolish than that pursuit that he took on is for us to covet the exact same stuff that doomed him in the end, knowing where it got him. Now, that's hard, that's scary, but it's got to be motivated by love. It can't come from guilt. It's got to be love. Because that's what 2 Corinthians 8 says that Jesus did for us. He had all this stuff. He had everything and more that we could ever dream of. But Paul says that he came down here for us. He gave all of that up, and he came down for us. And why did he do that? Well, it's because of that one four-letter word that changes absolutely everything. Love. Because he loved you so much. He gave it all. And that's our standard. If you're in this room, if you're in this country, you have a lot. You have more than anybody Jesus was talking to here. I do. But if we're going to be like Jesus, which is the point of our lives, then our call is to give up our stuff. Give up everything we could ever dream of because of love. Give it to the church, absolutely. But not only that, give it to homeless people. Oh, they're going to use it on bad things. What have we done with Jesus' offering? I don't know about you, but I've taken his death to cleanse me from my sins. I've used that over and over again for me on bad things. It wasn't a if you live right, then I'll die for you. It's an I'll give everything for you. I love you so much, just to give you the opportunity to do it in return. That's tough. But it's the best way we can possibly live. If you need to make something right tonight, why don't you do it as we stand and as we sing?